So all those, the need for contacts are very, very important, as is the need, as journalists say all the time, for timing. To be aware that the story and the season and the month, very, very important. So winter stories, summer stories, autumn stories, all important. It's particular months, whether it's St. Valentine's Day or a particular birthday or an anniversary of a particular event, all absolutely crucial in terms of timing, in terms of media relations. And of course, as again, journalists will stress that we need to be aware of deadlines for each of the media and to give journalists plenty of time to write their story, to absorb their story, to understand the story. Very, very important indeed. And two, appreciation of slack times and busy times for the media. And in slack times then being able to communicate and maybe help to create stories that will be of interest to television, radio, print and new media or digital media. Quite often a very powerful tool for the PR consultant is what's called the date for your diary. Now, some people will dismiss that, others believe that it's very important. What is a date for your diary? Well, it's a short letter informing a journalist of an event, a date, a time, with the details, a short description of its news value, the value in terms of photography, television, radio. It is to inform, to get it in the news diary, but also to interest or even obviously excite the journalist that they want to cover the story. So it is it's a very, very powerful, important piece of writing. Generally the way I have done it in the past is an introduction to the story, very quickly told, almost like a piece of advertising, which you're giving the details and the story angle. That might be followed by specific detail like a venue or a time and a date. And then, very importantly, is to add to that by thinking about the individual journalists that you're targeting. So, for example, if it's television, what makes this particular story TV worthy? Is it individuals? Is it a location? And what can you offer in terms of photography as well? Do you have particular photographic ideas that the photo editor will like? And share those ideas, express interest. Very, very important. In terms of radio, again, if you are going to a journalist, a radio program, you've got to be aware, well, who would make good radio? What do the listeners of that particular program want to hear? And who do they want to hear? And what information can those people give? And then, of course, on a date for your diary, you've got the contact details and things like that. So, very important. I often think too in terms of a facility visit. Now, a facility visit can be where a journalist comes into the organisation to see a particular product, to see a new development within the factory. A facility visit too could be a country in terms of selling a country in terms of tourism. But it's, again, a very important part, I think, of public relations, which allows journalists to understand and see firsthand. And quite often, in those circumstances, they are interested. The reason why they come on a facility visit is their interest. And quite often you get very good copy, very good radio and very good television out of these particular visits themselves. Then you have the opportunity to manage press conferences. You have to be very careful here with a press conference. A press conference is a meeting of journalists who are assembled to receive information and to discuss, in other words, to pose questions. And it might be called, quite obviously, at short notice if it's an important story. And it has to be worthy of news. Today, journalists are so busy, they're not going to come to a press conference unless it's important. It's got to be well planned, the venue has to be right, the procedures have to be right, the timing has to be right, the invited people have to be right, the right mix, the appropriateness has to be there, and the press information provided has to be crucial. So within a press conference, you're looking at someone who can coordinate well, you're looking at chief executives, you're looking at experts being there, that journalists can pose questions to and get the right answer. And make good print, make good television, make good radio. Press conferences are very important. Just a brief mention about photography again, because it is so important, and to think about what makes a great photograph in terms of media relations, press relations, and PR. And think in terms of product-led photography, then news photography. When you're looking at product, there are particular skills that you'll learn on the job. You know, the importance of colour, and sometimes when in fashion or design product or crystal or wood or whatever, where there's craft, you know, it might be to do with shine, it might be to do with reflection, it might be to do with setting, it might be to do with a particular type of model and age and look and so on. All those things are very, very important. And with news photography, you've got to go back, well, what is the message in this photograph? How creative can we be? What are the client's needs? What is the media style that is needed? What do they like? What do they dislike in terms of that particular medium? And it's important, I think, to be interested. Photography is very, very important indeed. And then finally, of course, there is a press release. Now, lectures like that are not the place to teach people about press release writing, and you'll learn a lot more in seminars and in practice in relation to this. But the basic rules apply. On a press release, it is generally marked press release at the top. There is a headline, there is a clear date, and then you follow a simple golden rule that the first paragraph or two, the whole story is told, it's newsy, but above all, it's a summary of the whole story. In the next paragraphs, the relative importance decreases and the relative detail perhaps or generally increases. Comment can be expressed through quotes, and quotes give the release real life. And PR people have got to be very, very thoughtful about the power of the quote, and sometimes they're dismissed and puffery is put in. Pure advertising is simply put into quotes. Try it, and, you know, do not do that. Give the quote importance, give it factual significance, give the spokesperson authority, and often break up the quotes. Sometimes direct quotes, sometimes not so. A press release should be 2 pages max, 1 page. It depends obviously on the story and the news value. Additional notes should be added as notes to the end, under the title of notes to the editor at the end. And I think always this is very important, because in the notes to the editor, you should be thinking about the detail that will interest the journalist that perhaps you couldn't put into the press release. And always think in the notes to the editor about additional notes for television, for radio, for digital media. At the end of it all, and before notes to the editor, it should be clearly labelled end to say this is the end of the press release, and very important, always a stream of contact details should go onto the press release, and of course then you are available once the press release has been sent to answer any questions and to take up any opportunities related to it. All those things very, very important. So there is a short description of some of the issues to do with media relations.